When someone comes after us, 'tis but a scratch. And it sounds like the Monty Show does not like this. Is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, everybody. Drake Toll from ESPN Central Texas. Immaculate back with us, thankfully, and thanks for making Locked On Big 12 your first listen every single day. If you're a Big 12 fan, look, there is real proof that Washington State and Oregon State will be in this conference. Despite, if you watched the Monty Show, what the host there said that we are not a reputable source. Now, I listen to the Monty Show. I'll continue to. I think those guys are solid. But they got this one wrong. They came after us and our sources. And Immaculate, he's not a conspiracy theorist like they said. He is well informed. So this is still a real thing, Immaculate. And one of the things that Monty brought up was a sheet, the college football playoff revenue distribution, where he didn't read all the way to the bottom. What I see is not just $300,000 for every school when it comes to college football playoff and those teams and meeting NCAA standards, but we're talking millions and millions of dollars, even to Group of Five and FCS schools, much less what the Power Five brings in.
Yeah, as you can see, it's based upon those that have the Orange, Rose, and Sugar Bowl contracts. That's the Power Five. They have a payment for each conference, which is shown here at about $80 million. Those that are not part of that, the other five, they get an aggregate payment that they then split. That's the 102. There is a Notre Dame payment. There's another Independence payment. And there's even a payment for FCS schools that I do believe were the ones that played against the teams that participated in this. So there was a lot of money getting passed around.
A lot of money. And see, Monty read the top, but he never really scrolled down to do the full research to the bottom that Immaculate has done. Let's look at these two. These are Immaculate from Navigate. They did the information investigation on this, and we'll get into their company a bit. Also from ADU, Athletic Directors U. And if you look at some of these estimates for what the Power Five can bring in, is this where you got your $320 million number?
Yeah, this is basically when the temporary restraining order came out, I got very curious, and I found this, and I looked into this, and to go over these numbers for a while, it's a whole lot to take in, but this is where I got my idea on this and what I thought.
So what this says, annual payout per conference has the SEC number one and the Big Ten, and this is prior to USC and UCLA departing because the Pac-12 is included in this. But the number I want to circle kind of in the middle of your screen if you're watching on YouTube here is that the estimate, the current CFP structure, estimate $103 million per year given out, but an expanded 12-team playoff would be closer to $323 million. Those are the projections. Immaculate, looking at this, that is well-researched information that says there are $320 million per conference on the table when the CFP expands to 12.
Yeah, and that's kind of an average. If you were to look at those, each different conference had a different projected payout amount. And that was before any of the movements. The one you showed was before Texas, before Oklahoma, and before any PAC payout. So one would have to look at these with that in mind, that there will be some changes in that. The SEC and the Big are going up. The Big 12 is going up. The PAC's largely going to disappear from there if the PAC disappears from there. And that's where Oregon State and Washington State comes in. All of that money doesn't get passed to the other conferences until that conference disappears.
So Monty wasn't arguing the fact that there's a grace period here for the Pac-12, that it still quasi exists for the next couple of years. And with a lawsuit, Oregon State and Washington State have complete saying power within that league. There are $320 million. And this company says that's the average coming up for the Pac-12. And there are two schools left in that conference. But Immaculate, can you walk me through this? This research is being done not by a conspiracy theorist, but by a company called Navigate. And to me, it seems like their partners are pretty reputable.
Yeah, I would love to see the video of someone coming in and saying that this is a company of conspiracy theorists. And this is where I got it from. And so I had to look into, okay, who's this Navigate that was coming up for the numbers? And this is them. I mean, and people can see for themselves. I mean, they deal with the NFL, MLB, conferences, major companies. They're for real.
Baylor's Javon Overshone has even gone on to say that this company, who works with 4 Power 5 conferences, has been a huge asset to Baylor University, a member of the Big 12. And so again, Not a conspiracy theory here.
No.
And I think Monty said that he didn't listen to the show, Immaculate. He said he didn't listen to the show that you were on last week. So he had no idea how to push back on what you'd brought up. And to even go further into what Navigate is, this is what I see. They are working with individuals. If anybody's going to understand where this $320 million is coming from, what it means for Washington State and Oregon State, it's a company that's working with 4 Power 5 conferences.
Mm-hmm. And what that means is these conferences have this information. When he wants to bring up something showing that they're not projecting and making this amount in the future, well, they have their reasons for that, I'm sure. I cannot attest to it, but they likely know these numbers. Who's the 5th Power 5 conference that decided not to work with them? We don't know, but there's one that would probably all guess first, right?
The writing is on the wall there, especially because Navigate says 60%. Their clients average 60% more revenue from multimedia rights than their peers. There seems to be one conference who didn't get a lot of multimedia revenue in the last couple of years or had valuations that were flat out wrong and led to the implosion of certain leagues. Immaculate, to kind of tie all this together, what we have learned based on research from a firm that works with the biggest brands in not just college athletics, but all of pro sports and even in general marketing, has come out and said $320 million will be paid out to each league through the college football playoff on average. The Pac-12 is included in that with a grace period for the next couple of years, meaning that valuation, based on what we've been told now by the college football playoff website, by ADU, and by Navigate, 3 trusted sources where you got your information, all point to exactly what you said. Washington State and Oregon State are owed $300+ million right now unless something changes.
It looks that way. I don't want to come out here and say anything definitive, but that is what this research is pointing to. And the company who did that research does definitely seem reputable. So that's what I'm saying. And these numbers are on like an average teams in per year of like 1 to 2 teams. And if they're part of this they're still going to get their champion in that 12 team because of, the automatic bids for champions. If they're going to keep it at 6+6, they're getting in and they are getting that money.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the way that, unless we haven't heard anything of these college football playoff conversations.
No.
On the contrary, they literally met this week and said the number one issue is figuring out where Washington State and Oregon State go. But Brett McMurphy and the Monty Show, they've come out and said this is never going to happen. This is terrible information, and somebody's making this out of thin air. Well, I don't think Navigate is coming out of thin air. Even more than that, Immaculate, you've got universities like Baylor that are partnering with Navigate, conferences that are partnering with Navigate, who obviously, like you said, now know this information. To me, what I see is a well-researched take on your part for these schools. And the fact that, Monty mentioned he has a source within the Big 12. I tell you, I can email any member of the Big 12 staff right now, and they are great at getting back to you. And they would say exactly what Monty said, which is, we're happy where we are. They would never give you an inkling of information. They would just say, we're happy where we are. We're focused on the present. So that's not shocking that one of his sources, as he called them, from the conference said that. If I email right now anybody in marketing at Big 12, they'd respond immediately with, we're happy where we are, because that's what they're supposed to say. And it's the same thing they said this summer.
Correct. Yeah. If they're in talks, they can't come out and start talking to people about those talks that are ongoing. You can quite literally affect those talks to the point of them ending. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that he was, given that line.
Well, all of this is to say, Immaculate, and we can that's the 30,000-foot view. That's the meat. We'll give you the potatoes and unpack all of this, especially with your dessert coming later. But that makes me want to say thank you for coming on this show and bringing something that even some of the bigger Big 12 media outlets or personalities fail to acknowledge. What you did is did real research. You were called a conspiracy theorist, but Immaculate, I just graduated college. I'd like to think that I have been considered a scholar by one or two in the past. Maybe I don't know if it's rightfully so, but there aren't any holes here. You did research that isn't conspiracy theory style research.
Well, and the thing is, I didn't even do the research. I just read it. I just used Google and looked it up and read it. These people who did the research are for real. They're serious. They have their tower in downtown Chicago, not far from the Big Ten headquarters, mind you.
Well, some people didn't take the time to read it, obviously, and you did. So that means a lot to me, Immaculate. Coming up, let's unpack everything we just told you in layman's terms, as close as we can get it, here on Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Immaculate's not going anywhere, but I will tell you today's show is sponsored by Game Time. Oh my, the Texas Rangers are in the playoffs. They are on the road, which stinks. They couldn't win the West, all you Astros fans. That's good for you. But you can go see them play in Tampa Bay with Game Time. Last minute tickets, too. These are they're as cheap as they can get as well. You're getting a great deal on some playoff tickets to watch Rangers baseball. Flash deals, zone deals, last minute tickets. Easy to find and buy tickets on their app. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. They're obsessed with finding ways to save you money on tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time right now. We got special promo codes through Locked On as well. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Locked On College, $20 off your first purchase. Terms applied. Again, create an account, use promo code, redeem Locked On College for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices. That is guaranteed. All right, Immaculate. So we've got this information from Navigate, this company that tells us that Oregon State, Washington State are owed $300+ million based on their estimates. They're a reputable source who works with the NFL and everybody, even Budweiser. So what does this mean? With all this money, what does this mean for the Big 12? Does this point just strictly to Washington State and Oregon State being in this conference? Does it point to everybody getting more money in the new expanded playoff format? What is the main takeaway here from what reading that you've done?
Well, the way this is all written up and set up, it pretty much defines where this money has to go. Now, should the Pac, say, lose any of those bowl deals, they might be in a pain, and that might be what's used against them. But as things stand right now, they are still in that group. They still have those bowl deals. They really only need the one deal. They only need the Rose Bowl to be maintained. And that's kind of going away in 2012 because all of these bowls are going to be part of the thing. So I don't know if they could be dropped from that. But point being, as long as they, with the 6+6 especially, can get a champion into that tournament, they have easy access to this money. Now, if all the rest of the schools are leaving before the 2024 season, as they are scheduled to, and if the conferences are all basically getting the same base pay as we saw from there, they are essentially going to get that money directed to them because there's a base amount that's going to each of those conferences. And then, as you saw in the one graph from Navigate, that's based upon participation and the extra amounts that they'll make for each school that takes part in it. So that goes up big time with 12. And so that's where the differences in the conferences comes in. But there is still that base amount that you get for just taking part. And as you can see, if you were to say, look at the Pac in there with the 269 at 1.7 per team, they're right there. Like everyone who has the one there of the powers, they're well over 200,000 at least there. So an average, the SEC one of 407 kind of takes it up high and raises that average a little bit higher. But these are all silly numbers anyways, right? Like whether you're getting the 269 or the 407. And with you got to remember the Pac right there, it's not going to exist like that anymore, that payout. If the Pac goes away, take that 269 and split it up between the top four. And now look at the numbers you start to get. It gets pretty silly when you start to do the per team payouts.
So the way that then on paper, based on contracts, what has been signed, sealed, written, Washington State, Oregon State are owed this money. In my head, and help me unpack this, in my head, the reason they would go to the Big 12 is ESPN says, hey, look, we need to rework this. Obviously, Washington State, Oregon State would say no, right? They wouldn't want to rework $320 million. But if there's the bonus of, hey, we'll rework this, and you can have the security of being in a conference that is the Big 12. That's where I see this turning. Am I off there?
ESPN probably has the least reason to do this because they pay the CFP.
Okay.
Then the CFP distributes. So ESPN's giving them the same amount regardless. That's part of their deal, part of the percentage payout of their overall ad money that they make. And we're going from 3 games to 11 games. You're talking about almost 4 times increase of content. There's going to be a lot more ad money to this. So when it goes to the CFP, that's when the distribution happens. And as you can see, some of these schools moving is increasing and changing the payouts that we're looking at as early as 24, not even talking 26 yet, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of them staying there, that's a short-term deal. That's the 24 and 25 years. What we have in 26, we don't really know. So what I'm saying is why I think that they could end up in the Big 12 is them leveraging that amount of money to say, get us a position in a conference that we accept, and we'll leave, we'll close the doors, shut the doors, and all that money can get distributed to everyone else.
So this would be a decision that Washington State and Oregon State have to initiate to try to get into a conference. Is that what I'm hearing? That there's not a realm in which a CFP or even in ESPN, the NCAA, somebody with a higher power comes in and says, hey, we need to make this move. We need to put you in a conference. This has to be initiated by these 2 schools.
I mean, some of the other conferences might actually initiate this because they're the ones who would get the payout money coming to them.
Whoa. What you just said is if 2 more teams are added to the Big 12, there's a larger payout for what these schools get. Like almost that the Big 12 would be silly not to take these 2 formerly Power 5 teams.
Well, not just them. In fact, the Big 12 would be doing a favor for the Big 10. The Big 12 would be doing a favor for the ACC. The Big 12 would be doing a favor for the SEC because I don't think all of that money, all $300 million, is going to go to the Big 12. No, if I've given that impression, that's wrong. It would be dished out between the power conferences, maybe a little bit more given to the G's. I'm not sure. That's negotiations well above our pay grade. But yeah, that money would go to them. So it's in all of their best interest to get this done. Now, those conferences, if they really want it to happen, would probably have to make some kind of a deal with ESPN. I've talked recently with Mr. Bob Thompson. You may have heard of him. One thing he suggested was that maybe like their contracts would get extended so ESPN could get a favorable deal with like the SEC and the ACC and the Big 12, maybe add a little time to the contract so they don't have to negotiate so soon. I don't know. They'd have to work something out, but they all benefit from this happening. And the Big 12 sitting there saying, yeah, sure, we'll help you out. What are you going to give us?
Well, Immaculate. I want to get into what all of this means for the Big 12. Like what a time to be in the Big 12 and where this conference will be in a couple of years. Because Nathan Baumer on this show said there's a 99% chance that Washington State and Oregon State are in the Big 12. Let's get into that. What? Don't reveal it yet. Let's get into that coming up next here on Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. But first, DoorDash. Dude, DoorDash is already great. I know you've been using DoorDash and stuff like that for years to deliver food straight to your door. But what if you could do it with groceries now, too? There are other grocery sites, but I don't know if any are as convenient, in my opinion, it's me saying this, as DoorDash. Your avocados went bad. You burnt your last piece of toast. The hot sauce is empty. Grocery delivery with DoorDash is exactly what you need. You'll get everything you want delivered when you need it, right to your door. So if you've trusted DoorDash, if you have, I know you have, you've trusted them to deliver your food from restaurants, now do it with your groceries because they're going to get it right. Thousands of grocery stores to choose from. You'll find the best in your neighborhood and boost your local economy with each and every order. Want even more value? Save on all your grocery and restaurant favorites with $0 delivery fee on all eligible orders with the Dash Pass membership. Get 50% off your first DoorDash order up to $20 when you use code LOCKEDONCollege at checkout. Limited time offer, terms apply. 50% off up to $20, no minimum subtotal. 0 delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store. Enter code LOCKEDONCollege. Don't forget code LOCKEDONCollege. 50% off your first order with DoorDash. So, Immaculate, let's talk current Big 12. With the idea that, people have come on this show and said there's a 99% chance Oregon State, Washington State are here, and that a TCU is playing the Cougars in a couple of years. Where do you stand? How likely is it the Big 12 goes to 18?
I am not a big fan of doing percentages when I am not the actual one involved. So that's where I'm like, I don't want to give a percentage hope to someone. I just want to point out a situation and say, this could lead you to getting there. You didn't have a path before. You have a path now if this gets used properly, if things play out properly. But I'm not one to feel comfortable with putting a percentage chance of that happening.
But when you say properly, this working out properly, what is the proper way for this to go?
Well, we know that Brett Yormark, in an interview with Joel Klatt, said that he has a whiteboard full of ideas that he would like to install. And we know that during his interview with the Big 12, that he got the job because he presented 10 ideas that he wanted to do for the conference instead of just like one or two as most candidates. So he's got a long list of things to do. And I don't know if I've seen a better opportunity for a man to get one of those things from, whether it's from the networks or it's from the other conferences. I'd have to know what the list is to say, but this seems like a pretty good opportunity to solve a problem that all of these conferences are now having. They're looking at this big pile of money that they've wanted to get their hands on that kind of got stymied a little bit, and he can help solve that problem if he wants to.
So what you've said, you can't give a percentage for those two schools going to the Big 12. I respect that. Give me this, though. I know the college football playoff, it's been made clear that they cannot move forward effectively until they figure out Washington State and Oregon State. What is the most likely figure it out scenario? What is so possible that it almost has to happen, if anything at all, with those two schools? Well,
the biggest problem here is that the president of Washington State is still on the CFP board of managers. That's Kirk Schultz. That's a vote. And they need unanimous vote. And we did speak about this. This is no one's arguing that this is the case at this point. I haven't seen one yet. So in order to break that lock, you got to get the pact to be ended. You have to get them moved into somewhere else, so that way he's not going to sit there and vote against your plans. So, find a solution, get it worked out, and all of this goes forward. It's log jammed. You could say the Beavers have created a dam.
Based on what you've heard Schultz say, do you think Washington State would settle for some kind of relationship with the Mountain West, or is this university hell-bent on being Power 5?
They've directly said that. They've said that their intent is to be part of a Power 5 conference. I don't have that quote in front of me, but I have seen it, and it was pretty direct. That's not to say that they haven't talked with the Mountain West. It's not to say that they wouldn't do that if they had to, but that is not their intent. That is not their desire.
So what I'm gathering here, and I'm saying this, nobody else, not you, not a different source. Schultz is going to continue to vote against the rest of the board for the college football playoff until Washington State gets what they're deserved, Power 5 status. What do they want? Power 5 status. It only makes sense that the logical way to move forward here is for Washington State, thus Oregon State, to be in a Power 5 conference. Could it be the Big Ten, the ACC, or the SEC? What are we missing here, and why is it not them?
Number one, not the Big Ten because of cost. Washington and Oregon just got in there, and their payment is downwards of about $30 million starting off. So just the cost of bringing in there, it's heavier. They've already got Washington school and an Oregon school, so you're kind of doubling up in the same area. The ACC kind of seems like they're about to do a different thing. They're going into private universities. Meanwhile, their major big publics are all saying they want to get out. All Florida State, Clemson, and UNC are publics. And then the three that came in, well, California is not, but they'd like to think that they're private.
Right.
But you're starting to see a different tone to what they want to do out there. And Washington State and Oregon State just don't really seem to match that. So, is it possible? Sure. Would I say it's likely? No. The Big 12 seems much more akin to them. We're talking about land-grant ag schools. I mean, what do you think, Big 12 or ACC?
Yeah. It seems pretty self-explanatory to me. This whole thing does. And if you just do a little digging, not even research, you said it, it's not even research, it's just a little reading, you can see the writing's on the wall with this stuff. It takes a little bit to piece it all together, but the writing's on the wall with this whole thing immaculate. I can't thank you enough for joining the show again. Somebody came out publicly with a big platform and said that you are a conspiracy theorist. And I think you proved last week and again this week that's not the case, that everything you do is well researched, that it's well thought out. I'll say that. Even if you don't want to say research, I will. And I can't thank you enough for bringing that perspective to this show that I stand by. I will not this is a message not to you, but to everybody listening. I will not bring somebody on the show that doesn't know what they're talking about. They can't back up what they're talking about. I will be the least informed one on this show every day that there's a guest. And Immaculate, you have certainly delivered. Thank you for being on today. Where can people find your this level of research and insurance that you continue to put out?
Well, you could definitely find me on X. I am Immaculate View out there, at Immaculate View. You can also find me on the Big 12 Mafia show. I go on there with Bomber Brown. Currently, it's looking about Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday nights, 2 or 3 times a week we have a show. And on occasion when Buddy Drake decides to have me on. But yeah, I'm just a guy who really enjoys looking into this and is trying to help people see things for themselves rather than just waiting for someone from the media to tell them.
Yeah. Well, that's immaculate. As immaculate as always. Folks, thanks for making Locked On Big 12 your first listen every single day. Again, just this, if somebody says that we're not a reputable source or that we have no consistency or honesty, just a great opportunity to prove them wrong. Thanks for making Locked On Big 12 again your first listen every single day. This has been Locked On. I'll say it again. Thanks for making your first listen every single day. Doce Grande.